Hello everyone, Phoenix61 here with tonight's World of Warships Legends shenanigans, right? So I'm doing a little bit different style of a video today. This is gonna fall under the Teach Me Phoenix kind of categories, right? So I think one of the most misplayed classes is probably destroyers, and specifically Japanese destroyers, ones that are sort of more torpedo boat centric than a mix or guns, like which is going to be like your original, Japanese destroyer line, that first row that you typically grind through. Most of those are torpedo boats, and along with the Shimikaze, and then here we have the Asashio, which is a tier 6 premium, right? So I was playing through my premium supplies missions here, and I think the big thing here is, what we're saying is, you're a torpedo boat, that's your main thing, right? And then as a destroyer, it's good practice to spot enemy ships for your allies, as well as capture zones, right? So these are all sort of at your like discretion, right? Like, don't go balls to the walls into the zone, because pretty much anything else that shows up is gonna be able to outgun you, right? When you're one of these Japanese torpedo boats, right? So we pop and see this Benson here, so I start moving away. There's a hipper, right? Cruisers are almost always bad for destroyer players, right? So Benson's got better guns than me. He's also got his own torpedoes, right? The cruiser, I don't want to deal with him. Hipper, that's a German cruiser. He's probably got the longer range sonar, right? Like, we need an exit strategy, and that's why I pointed myself away from the zone. So there's the Hipper's sonar. I'm going to use my engine boost to get the hell out of here, right? So, like, because everyone's going to shoot you, right? If these players have any sort of competency, right, they will see the destroyer and shoot the destroyer. We need to get away from this sonar, right? Like, works out perfectly for us, right? We live to fight another day. I don't care about the zone. Don't risk your ship for the zone. It's not worth it. You're way better off still existing in the game than you ever will be manning it out in a zone with a gunboat when you're a torpedo boat, right? Like, it's a knife to a gunfight kind of thing. Like, yeah, if you don't get them with that initial volley of torpedoes, you're screwed. So set yourself up with an exit strategy, especially when you see and know that you're outgunned. We saw the destroyer pop up, we saw a cruiser pop up. I started turning away from that zone right away. Now, I'm trying to be sneaky. This, you could argue, is a little bit too aggressive, but I'm going to say I'm going to try and get back into the zone, see what happens. And sure enough, we get too close to the Hipper. He picks us up again with his sonar, but I kind of anticipated that, right? I didn't go directly towards him. I kind of angled myself away so that if this happened again, I could do the same exact thing I did before, which is leave the zone, right? Like, so what I'm going to do here, since I'm pretty useless if I don't get torpedo hits, is I'm going to stay just out of range of that Hipper's sonar and being spotted by any of these guys. And I'm going to see if I can sneak back into the zone. And all of these guys are trying to duck behind this island over here, right? So, and I'm keeping them spotted for the rest of my team at this point, right? So it's going to be really tempting to drop your smoke here and sit here and shoot them with your guns, but in reality, you're probably the only one spotting them, so they'll all disappear and they'll thank you for it, right? So what I'm going to do is, they've backed off enough. They're satisfied that they capped the zone, right? So they've backed off enough that I can sneak into the zone here and just keep them spotted, right? I'm a torpedo boat. I'll keep these guys spotted, and I will send torpedoes at them every time I've got them reloaded, right? So we're just going to do this for this moment here, right? So just be patient. I think a lot of times, half the time in this game, when I have good games and or win, it's because I was patient, right? Like, especially if you guys watch me play on live stream, sometimes I am not patient, and sometimes I do bad because of that, right? But yeah, so I have 2 games to highlight here, so I'll fast forward through some of the more boring parts here, because honestly, like, this is the life of recording games, and then I delete the vast majority of them, right? Like, even if I'm winning them, you have games like this where you just play the strategy correct, and that's what won the game for you. But, like, I have no damage done this game so far, right? Like, I've spotted 2 ships. I think we do get 1 torpedo hit on this hipper here, so we get a little bit of revenge for him spotting us, right? But like, this is the reality of it. Like, even if I win 10 games, like half the time, sometimes there's only maybe 1 of those that's like YouTube worthy sometimes, right? So we get the hit on the hipper, and then between our cruiser and battleship over on our flank here, the Benson destroyer, right, that came around the corner, got, you know, he was a little, you know, got a little overwhelmed there with, because he was probably the only thing that they could shoot at, right? And they may have anticipated him coming around the corner, right? So this sign up here shows up. He looks like he's going to press around the corner too. So I'm just going to anticipate that he's probably going to turn in and or slow down at some point. So I shoot these torpedoes, both sets of these, short, right? I shoot them early. And I was also anticipating my allies to like move, right? So I shot torpedoes with the anticipation that they would move, but they don't, right? So I end up blocking everything. And then yeah, we've got Agile Montpelier. I can't say that ship name, but yeah. So the sign up run and the Colorado ram into each other. I don't know whose idea that was, but it was a bad one for, you know, us, because I had torpedoes on the way, right? Like I was just, if our Colorado could have moved out of the way, right? I mean, granted, it's a slow ship, right? Especially to get going, right? But like, I was there. I was doing my part, right? So our cruiser triggers radar, which is going to pick up both of these guys for us. So this hipper is tucked away around the corner, just enough for us to be able to shoot our guns at him a couple times here, without us being spotted, right? This is a little about map awareness and just knowing that nothing else has line of sight on you. So we take advantage of that and we shoot our guns because we know we won't get spotted, right? But in reality, I don't anticipate having any sort of reasonable amount of damage being dealt with my guns in this ship, right? It's a torpedo boat. We've built in to the torpedoes and the concealment and maybe the speed a little bit, you know, is kind of helpful there too. But yeah, in reality, like, the guns suck, right? So we anticipate that, right? So we play to the ship's strengths and we avoid the ship's weaknesses, which is its guns, right? So we don't make sure we didn't get into a gun battle with that Benson early on. And here we are living to fight another day where we've capped zones, we've been spotting ships for our allies, and we're sending more and more torpedoes, right? We still exist, so we can still send torpedoes. So I think one of these cruisers comes around the back corner here. We'll just wait for him for a minute. But yeah, I sent torps on either side of this island, assuming, you know, I'm like, someone's going to come around one of these corners, right? Like, we're winning pretty significantly on points. We've got all 3 zones captured at this point, right? So like, this team is going to be forced to do something about it at some point, right? So I think the Montpelier probably triggered his radar here, so we get picked up. So I'm like, all right, we'll get a couple salvos off with the guns, be a decent distraction, try and help our cruiser out, who is also low on health, right? So they managed to finish off the hipper. We'll go after the Montpelier a little bit here, and then I'm going to trip my smoke, so you can see that he doesn't have line of sight on us anymore. But he still had the radar spotting us for a little bit there, and then now his radar probably just ran out, right? So that, you know, those only last like a few seconds or so, depending on what ship and what country it is, right? But so we kind of took advantage of that. But then yeah, he does manage to finish off our cruiser, who was spotting him, right? So I'll take a couple of guest shots with the torpedoes. I was kind of hoping this battleship over here on our flank would help spot him, but he doesn't. He looks like he's going around the corner, so I figured, all right, I'll move out of my smoke screen so I can pick up this cruiser, so at least this battleship knows where he's at and what he's doing. And so we pick him up by coming around the corner. And we'll launch our torpedoes and just hold off on firing our guns because they suck, and we would get spotted and then he would outgun us, right? Like, so just play, yeah, we're just playing the ship, right? So it does look like we get a second torpedo hit for the game here finally. And these hit pretty hard, right? Like, so because we've built into the torpedoes, right? Like, we've only got 2 hits and maybe a few gun hits here, right? And we've got over 30,000 damage at tier 6 with only 2 torpedo hits right now. Granted, we hit cruisers too, so like, you know, battleships tend to have a little bit more torpedo protection, right? But Yeah, so like decent chunk of damage. And then since he's shooting our battleship, I figured I'd take advantage of that and get some cheap shots off on him. And then of course it triggers the other cruiser, I think that's a Boise out there, to take some shots at us, right? So this is one of those games where, like, if you look at the scoreboard here, right, like if we had been the destroyer on our team that died early on, right, if we tried to muscle it out in zone A, right, we had that exit strategy, we left, and we're here to fight another day, we were able to cap that zone, right, like, we potentially could have lost, right? Like this was a very losable game if you go back and look at how we played it in the beginning, right? We didn't feel like we were, we weren't doing a lot of damage. It didn't feel like we were contributing. We weren't firing our guns. But in reality, like that's the type of play that's going to take to win the game, right? So fast forwarding through here because these guys are forced to try and cap zones and they need to be super, super aggressive if they want to have any sort of chance of winning, and they don't do that. So that wins the game for us on points. I'll take a quick peek at the leaderboard here on this one, and then I've got another similar type of situation to like go through and show you. But yeah, like I said, like this is one of those games that normally I would have just deleted because it's like, all right, we played our part, we won the game, but it wasn't really that exciting. I'm like, well, we can do a little bit of like lunch and learn here, right? And like just like this is destroyer play, right? Like this is how, especially Japanese destroyers, right? Like you're a torpedo boat, build into the concealment, build into the torpedoes, build into the speed, right? And just use those things. And when you can't, move away from that situation, like, and rely on some of your allies to help you out with those things. So almost exact type of thing here. The destroyer on the enemy team is the Friesland. I know that he does not have torpedoes. It's one of the few destroyers that does not have torpedoes, but he's got awesome guns and could totally wreck us completely on his own very, very easily. He also has sonar as well. It's not as long of range as what the like German guys have, right? Especially those cruisers and battleships. I think it's probably like around 4 kilometers ish, maybe 4.7 at most, right? A lot of them are like 3.5, right? I don't have them all memorized, but I know he's got sonar. I know it's not crazy long, but I know it's not crazy short, right? Like, so yeah, whatever. Anyway, so I know I don't want to get spotted by him or anybody really in reality, right? It's fine. Like the planes picking us up is not a big deal because the ships can't lock onto you if the planes are spotting you. But like I am 100% relying on trying to get a torpedo hit to hit this guy. That's the only way I'm going to take him out when I'm over here on my own, right? If he gets spotted here now, like we probably have better concealment than him. So if we spot him, our battleship here could probably help shoot him, but I cannot press in there because I will lose my ship if I do that, right? Like, so like I kind of feel bad because there's not much I can do about this battleship that's over pushing on my team, right? So he's literally the first one to go down. But like I would be risking my own ship as well, right? So like, I mean, this game is funny because like I'll get nasty messages from people expecting me to sacrifice my ship for them, and I'm like, dude, we both would have died, right? He didn't message me, but like that's the kind of situation where I get the nasty grabs, and I just like, you just gotta roll your eyes and delete it, right? But so again, now that my battleship support is gone, right? It's just me. There's this Friesland and at least this other battleship over here. I'm gonna guess that's probably it, right? So I'm gonna like try and stick by and as my torps get reloaded, send some more. And then like, I'll be like sneaky here. Like I know I've got probably a little bit better concealment than he does because he was getting spotted a little sooner, right? So maybe I can sneak into the zone. I've got my smoke screen if I need it, right? Like, so I'm trying to stick up for my flank, but in reality you can only do so much. So yeah, we get the spot on the Friesland, so you can see quite a bit more. Like we spotted him at like 6.1, right? And our concealment is 5.2, right? So I'm able to sneak into the zone, but as he keeps moving around the corner, he's going to pick us up, right? So we're going to have to deal with this. My torpedoes are almost reloaded, but I'm going to drop the smoke here because I know like it's not going to take much for him to waste me with his guns, right? So I drop my smoke. I'm going to get these torpedoes off. I'll use damage con here to get rid of the fire, right? And then we're going to just try and keep, you know, I slowed down enough so that smoke stayed between me and him so he doesn't have line of sight on us, right? And then I'm running away. I'm getting away from this situation because that's how you lose games, right? Like, trying to muscle it out with guns, right? I need to rely on those torpedoes to get that hit, and if it doesn't happen, then I gotta move away and come back and fight another day, right? Because getting into a gun battle with him, there's no way you're winning it. There's no way. Especially this ship too, like this one, like the gun turrets move super slow. Like the guns aren't just weak, right? Like they're bad, right? Especially since we've built into the torpedoes only, right? So fast forwarded a little bit here. This Leviathan looks like he's coming around this corner. Plus, that's kind of the last direction that Friesland was spotted to, so I'm sending both racks. You guys know me, like, I'm always like, oh, you should space your torpedo racks out, and then I put out videos where I don't do that, right? But I'm like, out of, like, frustration, trying to, like, do anything I can about this Friesland, I'm just, like, sending it, right? And plus, like, you know, it's the only thing that's over here that's spotted, too, so I went for it. And then, yeah, so I fired my guns. I figured I'd be able to bait the Friesland. It looked like this Kagaru on my own team was kind of starting to come around the corner, but I was thinking maybe he was coming to help me, but it looks like he's actually running away from his own destroyer, right? That's another, you know, the Kagaru is another Japanese destroyer, right? So he looks like he is doing almost the exact same thing I was, right? Moving away from another destroyer that probably has better guns than you, right? And just relying on torpedoes. So he gets his torpedo hit, I do not, right? So, but since he's moving this way, I'll circle back around and see, like, because I was kind of hoping maybe he would want to go after the Friesland with me, because, like, maybe together we could take it out, right? But this Munchin here, like, you know, nobody had line of sight on us, so I was able to get a couple of cheap shots over the island there and try and hit him. But yeah, so I'm like, all right, let's, you know, maybe he's moving towards the Friesland, maybe I can come and help him out. Like, I've got a little bit of health still, you know, like, this thing does not have a good health pool at all to start with, but I've got some, right? Like, use your resources. Health is one of them, right? But yeah, so the Friesland ends up going through C into B, right? I think he must have just got sick of dealing with me lobbing torpedoes back towards him. And then also I decided, like, well, either way, if he's coming this way, I can't take him on by myself, so I'll go back towards B, and then, yeah, so he shows up at B side, and everyone does their job and shoots the destroyer when they spot it. And then I'm going to simply sneak into the B hole here and steal a quick assisted cap. Nope, I didn't get it. Yeah, oh, yeah, somebody got the reset. Yeah, they got hit. But yeah, like, I don't get any, like, torpedo hits or anything here, so I just fast forward, right? Like, so we'll go, so we helped with the capture assist, and then we're going to go and go to the C cap, and this destroyer on my team is, I think this is the Kagaru here that's with me as well. I've got a smoke screen, right? So I'm calling out set a smoke screen to try, like, I noticed some people do this too, where, like, if you're the one setting the smoke screen, you'll call it out, because he was super low on health and he was getting picked on by the carrier. So I dropped the smoke more so for him, and he does finally realize that's kind of what I was going for. So he does go and sit in it, and then he circles around, and you can see the airplanes on the mini-map getting completely lost trying to look for him. Meanwhile, I sneak up to the corner to go and rush at the carrier, right? So it all worked out really, really well. But like I said, this was another scenario where if I would have sat in our zone and fought to the death on it, right, like, I probably would have lost, and then that potentially could have changed the momentum of the game, and my team probably could have lost, right? Here I'm looking at the clock. You can see we got about a minute left. I need to get in range of the carrier. And when you lock onto the carrier, you can see that I'm not quite in range. And then when you are in range, it gives you the amount of seconds it will take for your torpedoes to get there. So you notice it's 51 seconds, and there are 54 seconds left on the clock. So we will wait this out and watch. I almost, like, sometimes I'm like, I should just let this guy hit me with his torpedoes, because he's not going to move his carrier, right? Like, why bother? But, like, I mean, you can autopilot your carrier, guys. Like, I say this, like, every game, but I'm like, whenever I see a carrier just, like, sitting somewhere or tucked away in the corner, I'm like, you could be doing so much better if you were moving that carrier around appropriately, right? Autopilot it. Go into the map view and hold X on any square on the map, and your carrier will go that direction automatically. You don't have to pilot your carrier, right? But yeah, so Another just like perfect example, like here we've got another like low score. We do have a kill this game, right? But like 26,000, you know, 27,000. We'll get a little bit more damage here on this carrier, especially when these these torpedoes hit, right? So we get the dev strike on him, so that'll help. That puts us up to 62k. Literally all my damage is like is done on the carrier. And then we'll take a quick look at the leaderboard here again. But yeah, this was another one where I was like, oh, I should just delete this game because it's just like kind of boring. But like, and we at least got third here, right? So that's a little bit better. And then we'll see if we made any moolah. But I am like, I probably would have been down at the bottom, if not near it, right? If I hadn't gotten those hits on that carrier, right? Walked away with some silver there. I will go through the build for this ship. But this is kind of how I have quite a few of my Japanese torpedo boat destroyers, you know, outfitted, right? So I do aiming system, I do propulsion mod, and I do concealment when that's an option, right? Tier 6, so we only get three mod slots. And I'm using Tanaka on this one. I do have another commander that I got from the Star Trek collaboration, right? But basically building into a little bit of concealment and a little bit of torpedoes for my inspirations. His base trait is more torpedo damage. And then, yeah, pretty much everything else is, yeah, torpedo speed and reload time. Here I went sea detectability range. Here I went reload time. And then here I went speed over smoke screen, right? Like, the smoke screens are fine here, but like I rely on that sort of tactic of like needing to run away. Like, you know, if you're a torpedo boat and if the torpedoes don't work out for you, right, if you don't get that initial elimination on that destroyer that's on the enemy side, you're gonna have to run, because like if they're smart and they know they have better guns than you, they're gonna come into your smoke screen and whoop you. So like that's kind of like my rationale behind not picking the smoke screen. Whereas if like on my American destroyers that have nice long smoke screens and I got, you know, pretty decent guns, I'll build into the smoke screen a little more, right? Like, so just do what makes sense. Thanks for watching, guys. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you tomorrow.